All right, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. Double honor to the apostle of the great millstone that rule well. And peace and blessings to the elect. I have another edition of GMS News and Prophecy. And I have an article from the zerohedge.com website. And it's entitled, Civil Unrest Explodes in Berlin. Over 3,500 people riot against police. All right. I'm actually going to entitle this lesson, The Stresses and Perplexities of Nations all over the world. Because what's been going on all over the world and here in America over the last decade or so is that different nations have been going through economic turmoil, political reforms, as well as wars that have caused different people within those nations to go against their government. Okay. So without further ado, I'm gonna go into the article, and I'm just gonna read some of this, and then I'm gonna go into another one. It says, "Civil unrest is exploding," warns Armstrong Economics Martin Armstrong. That's actually a good title. So it says the biggest and most violent protests in Germany erupted in Berlin over the weekend, exactly with our models calling for an explosion in civil unrest. So you have these economics experts. They actually graph models based off of what's going on in different countries, and predict a certain way a nation is going to go depending on how things are going down in that country. So these guys have predicted civil unrest coming to Germany. All right. So it says some 1,800 police were called in, and at least 120 policemen were injured in what is becoming a street battle. This has been the most aggressive and violent protest in Germany for the past 5 years. So like I said, there's been different distresses and perplexities of nations, okay, different riots and things exploding within the last decade, but especially more so within the last 5 years around the world, okay, especially over there in Europe and the Middle East. In the Middle East, I believe you had something called the Arab Spring, which started in Egypt, I believe around like 2011, 2012. You had major revolts or uprising in Egypt, which spread into Syria, and then you got Eastern Europe and Western Europe. You got Crimea, the Ukraine. You got Germany. You got Greece. All kinds of things have been happening around the world. Even in the UK, in England, you had those different students. They was protesting their high tuition out there. You know, they were imposing more of a higher tuition price for those over there in the UK. You know, and those students. So things have been happening over the past 5 years for different reasons, but there has been civil unrest nonetheless. So it says protesters were throwing bottles, cobblestones, and fireworks, as well as they destroyed cars, in addition to attacking police officers. And it appears at least 3,500 rioters took part in the uprising, and possibly more than 4,000. All right. It says the protest is against police operations. All right. Sounds familiar. Okay. And involve mostly young people who have risen up against the police operations in the Riga street area. Protesters wore black hoods, carrying banners with slogans like Riga Defend 94 and Housing Solidarity Against State Terror. Now, we all know that the elites of this society, they fund these different groups and these different protests and agent provocateurs to start up these protests and these uprisings. But it's becoming more and more of a problem for real people in America and abroad, to where it's going to cause martial law in those countries, and especially over here in America, especially with this whole Black Lives Matter movement. Okay, so it says the demonstration went on with the crowd chanting repeatedly, "Bullenschwein, get out of Riga," and demonstrators were throwing firecrackers, and police fired back with tear gas. The police also called in air support using helicopters, and they had to call in for reinforcements from Bavaria, Brandenburg, Lower Saxony, Saxony-Anhalt, Thuringia, and the federal police. All right, so they had to declare martial law. And the same thing happened over here in America a year ago when Jake was getting roused up after the Ferguson shootings and the Baltimore shooting of Freddie Gray, you know. But more and more tensions are going to arise in these different countries, all right? It says Interior Senator Frank Hinkle, CDU, announced that the police will also be present at night after the demonstration, so riots and arson attacks should be stopped, calling the riot a leftist orgy of violence. And this is a key point here. It says, with September's elections looming, we suspect the tensions will only get worse. Now, here in America, there's been a movie put out called The Purge Election Year. I believe that's what it's called. The Purge Election Year. And 2016, it being a presidential election year, we have seen different riots and different protests happening so far this summer. They're actually calling this summer the summer of chaos. Okay? That's what the media has been coining this the times we're living in now, the summer of chaos. Okay? So I want to go from this article here to the World Socialist website, WSWS.org, and it's entitled "Hundreds Arrested in U.S. Protests Against Police Killings." All right. So now we're dealing with the most recent issues between Jacob and Esau here in America. All right. So it says large demonstrations continued across the United States over the weekend, sparked by recent police murders in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Falcon Heights, Minnesota, and New York City. The new wave of protests followed the release of video footage showing police shooting and killing unarmed black men on Tuesday and Wednesday. Hundreds were arrested as police confronted protesters in a heavy-handed and provocative manner because they want these race wars, these riots to pop off. Okay? It says also in many locations, officers were outfitted in riot gear and armed with military-style weapons. Besides Baton Rouge and the Twin Cities area in Minneapolis, where the killings took place, demonstrations were reported in Atlanta, Baltimore, Boston, Chicago, Detroit, Fort Lauderdale, Los Angeles, Memphis, Nashville, Newport, Rhode Island, New York City, Oakland, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and many other cities. So all over America, there's been these different Black Lives Matters and these against police brutality protests, okay? I'm not going to read this whole article, but I will leave a link. But this is basically the sentiment of the different people in the countries around the world, man, protesting, man. Okay? But that's all prophecy. All right? So you got the news now. I'm going to bring about the different prophecies that the Lord, Yahweh Shai, said were going to happen before Yahweh Shai is to return. All right? So for the first scripture, let's go to Luke, the 21st chapter. I'm going to go to Luke chapter 21, start at verse 22. It says, "For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled." And that's the times we're living in. The days of vengeance of the Lord. It says, "For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled." So everything that we're going through in these days and times, in these last days, was already written, and it's being fulfilled. Okay, let's go to verse 24. It says, "And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations." Now, he's speaking about his people, the Jews or the Israelites. All right, back then, in the future, the prophecy was to happen that they were to go into slavery amongst all nations. Now, that happened to the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. All right, on this western part of the world. Okay, we were those Israelites that were to be captive in all nations. Okay, that's why I said so-called, because we are the Israelites. All right. It says, "And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled." The Gentiles here is talking about the other nations. It's talking about the so-called white man, okay, the Arab, East Indian, so-called Chinese, so-called Japanese. They all have quarters in Jerusalem, in Israel, and they're living there. Those aren't the real Jews over there, but their time is getting ready to be fulfilled for them to be there. So that came to pass. So now let's go into verse 25, which is the main point. It says, "And there shall be signs in the sun." Right? There's been many a lunar eclipse over the past 2 or 3 years. It says, "And in the moon," same thing with the different red blood moons. Okay. It says, "And in the stars, and upon the earth, distress of nations." And I just brought those articles about how there's riots in Berlin, Germany. There's protests over here in America. And these are just recent, within the past week. You know? Within the past week, there's been different things going on. Matter of fact, in Venezuela, they're going through an economic crisis down there as well. They're going through a famine, a scarcity of food. Okay? All right? So it says, "And upon the earth, distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring." It says, "Men's hearts filling them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken." Right? So there's going to be all kinds of calamities that happen. All right? So now I'm going to look up this word perplexity, all right, in the Greek, just to understand on what that means. Perplexity. It says, aporia, the state of one who was in perplexity, and there's a root word. All right. And the root word says here, it says doubt, be perplexed, which the word is actually aporio. So it means doubt, be perplexed, stand in doubt. It says to be without resources. Like I mentioned, Venezuela, they're out of food. To be in straits over there in Germany, right? To be left wanting, to be embarrassed. Well, these police shooters, the so-called blacks in this country, are embarrassed that their people are getting shot, and the government and the justice system is not doing anything about it. Okay, which is a part of the curses. But that's how people feel nonetheless. It says to be in doubt, not to know which way to turn, to be at a loss with oneself, be in doubt, not to know how to decide or what to do, to be perplexed. Okay, so that's what's been going on. Okay, the so-called poor of these nations, okay, the bottom rung of these different countries, okay, those that are low on the totem pole, so to speak, they don't know what to do. They got all these different things going on. Okay, prices are going up. There's economies being wrecked. Okay, there's different people getting killed. Okay, governments are on the rampage wars. People don't know what to do. They're in doubt, and they're in straits. Okay, so they really don't have no idea, of how to go about these things. So I'm gonna end it on this scripture here. Let's go to 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter. I'm gonna start at the first first verse. It says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord." All right, and this is in the Apocrypha, by the way, which was taken out of the Bible, by the so-called Bible Destruction Group in the late 1800s. All right, but nonetheless, it is a part of the Bible. Right, so it says, "And cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true." So everything written in the scriptures, all right, is all a part of the Lord's word. It's prophecy. They're faithful and true. So let's see what the Most High said was going to happen. All right, this is verse 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another." All right, like I said, you got these different protesters in the streets fighting against the police, fighting against the government, rioting, throwing rocks, stones, burning up cars. The police are coming out in riot gear, pepper spraying people, arresting people. So this prophecy being fulfilled. "For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." Verse 16. "For there shall be sedition among men," right? Which means like an uprising or insurrection. Okay? "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They should not regard their kings nor princes, their governments, their police force, those that enforce the law." Okay? It says, "And the course of their actions shall stand in their power." Okay? And this is the point. These are the things that's happening right now in the world. So this is how we know that Yahweh Shai is getting ready to come back. So let's go back to Luke 21. All right, and I said I was going to end it on that verse, but I'm going to end it on this verse here. This is Luke chapter 21 and 26. It says, I'm going to read 25. "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth." Fear, doubt, perplexity, right? Okay, dire straits. "For the powers of heaven shall be shaken." Verse 27. "And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up." Because you're going to see chariot sightings. I'm talking to the elect out there. Okay? It says, "Then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh." Okay? The redemption of who? Not Esau, not the so-called white man, not the Gentiles, but the Israelites only. Okay? And the elect of Israel at that. So this is what we have to look forward to, man. First these calamities are going to take place on the earth, and then Yahweh Shai is going to come and deliver us, man. Okay? But it's happening. Okay? I brought it out in those two articles, all right? But with that, I'm going to end it there. I hope it was edifying. I'm going to give all praises, all glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Double honor to the apostles of the great millstone. And as always, peace and blessings to the elect. And to the next additional GMS News and Prophecy. Shalom.